Accurate.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go.
This is Andrea Yount. We are preparing for our Therapy Thursday, our weekly broadcast on mental health topics. Therapy Thursday is brought to you by Affinity Counseling Services and A Lovely Pause. This is a test.
Oh, Affinity Counseling Services is located in Piggott, Arkansas, and Kennett, Missouri. We currently have 4 therapists in our office and are taking new clients. To join our sign-up sheet, visit counselingwithaffinity.com, and to find out more, you can call me, Kindred, at 870-324-5122. Thank you.
And A Lovely Pause is a local nonprofit created to provide community education, awareness, coping skills, and support to people with PTSD and other trauma-related disorders. This month, subscribers to our newsletter will receive a free emotion meter. Use this free tool to gauge your emotions, identify triggers, and list coping skills that work for you. Sign up at A Lovely Pause, PAUSE.com, or visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube.
And today's the last day you can get that emotion meter because tomorrow is a new month and our new newsletter will come out and we will have a new freebie for you and a new topic.
Indeed. Stay tuned. And tune in.
Therapy Thursday normalizes discussing mental health topics in a safe, supportive environment because not being normal is normal.
Welcome, everyone, to Therapy Thursday, our weekly installment here at Affinity Counseling Services, where we talk about different mental health topics from a personal and professional perspective. My name is Matthew Yount, lead therapist and president here at Affinity. To my right is my wife, Andrea.
Hi.
Vice president at Affinity. And you corrected me on this last time. What is it? Chairman of the board?
Yes.
Chairman of the board of A Lovely Pause.
Chairwoman.
Chairwoman of the board.
Chairwoman.
Chairperson.
Chairperson. Chair of the board is what I've been saying.
Chair sounds good. You're a chair.
I am a chair.
This is my chair, Andrea. To my further right is Stacy, marketing director here at Affinity, and also
She is vice chair.
vice chair. Cool.
Vice president and president are the same thing.
Yeah,
It's
are
just,
they?
You know, technically.
Okay, well, you corrected me on it, so I wanted to make sure I got
That's
it right
just what
this
it
time.
legally is.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're above board here.
We're following all the legalities, y'all.
By the book.
By the book.
So, that's Stacy. Over there, behind the camera, as always, taking your comments, questions, and concerns, is Kindred.
Hi.
Hello.
Kindred's our office manager here at Affinity, and also chair secretary.
Just secretary.
Okay,
Just
just
secretary.
secretary of A Lovely Pause. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you back with us. We are rounding out our topic on teen mental health for the month, and we've got one today on, what is it, teen depression and suicide.
Yes.
Okay? So,
Pretty heavy topic.
yeah, heavy topic. But we're gonna, we're gonna approach it from an educational perspective,
Right.
as we do everything else, and we'll put on our try to make a heavy topic not so heavy, more so just informational and understanding than anything else, using whatever limited experience that we have with such things, but we'll try to project that in a way that will make it a little bit easier to digest and not so difficult. Before we get started on that, would you please tell everyone about what's coming up next weekend that's going on with A Lovely Pause?
Yes. Next weekend, A Lovely Pause is having our first community event at the First National Bank Pavilion in Piggott, and it's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We will be grilling some burgers, and we will have information, and our board members will be there. Most of our board members will be there to talk about what it is that we're doing. We will be signing up volunteers, and we will have clowns with balloon animals and face painting and drawings and live music from Megan Johnson. So lots of fun, and you can get some food, and it's all for donation, and so you can learn a little bit about A Lovely Pause.
Great. And also, starting tomorrow, I think, you're going to have links up on A Lovely Pause's Facebook site. Is that
Yes.
right? And what are those links going to be for? For donations, I know, but what will they be doing to donate?
What will they be doing to donate?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're having a pie in the face contest.
Which I am part of.
And you are going to do it?
I told you I'd do it.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure you were
Yeah,
gonna do it. Okay.
absolutely.
So we're going to have some locally famous faces as well as some faces that will be running for office that will be attending the event. And a few of them have agreed to be in a contest where you get to vote. And the person who raises the most money per vote or with votes will get a pie on the face live streamed on Facebook, on our Facebook, and live at the,
So
at
are the
thing.
people going to be put into like categories or like where they're competing against each other, or is it just the person?
You will just have to wait and see.
Oh, okay.
So-
Cool. Yeah. So that comes out tomorrow, though?
Yes.
All right. Interesting. So now I'm on a cliffhanger and in suspense. I don't know who I'm going to vote for, but I'm going to vote for somebody, and that's not going to be me.
You are not going to vote for yourself?
No, I'm not going to lay down money on myself to be pied in the face. Thank you.
Why?
I mean, it's
I
kind of a
would.
delicious thing to happen, though, right?
Yeah.
Like you get
It's
all
not the worst thing that could happen. to you.
exactly. It's not like getting dunked in like a dunking booth. Like
Right.
that would
That would
not
suck.
be super fun unless it was really hot out.
I was
and
about to say, it's
yet.
not that hot.
Right. Yeah. That would be less fun than pie in the face. So
What kind of pie is it? Is it the standard
do
cream
you
pie?
have a
Whips.
preference? Like I think we
I mean,
could be open to suggestions since it's like
If I get to
a
eat some
pie.
of it later, then chocolate by all means. But
Okay.
if it's just if I've got to get it out of my beard, then let's just go standard cream. So all I've got to do is wash this thing.
Well, I mean, I don't think you're going to be eating the pie that just gets smashed. I mean, off of your face.
Some of it, it
Yeah.
depends on what the pie is. I will
That's
eat a little
exactly.
bit
I
of
would
it,
be
yes.
eating some of that pie off of my face.
If I was, I would be happy with the cream.
Yeah, I mean, cream would be fine too. I'm not against it, even though I'm lactose intolerant. I'll deal with it. So that starts tomorrow on A Lovely Pause's Facebook page. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay. So A Lovely
Yes.
Pause, PAUSE.
It'll be on our website, but we'll share it on our Facebook
Cool.
page.
Awesome. All right. So
It's
Kendra's
cracking
about
up,
to
y'all.
lose it. All right. Anything else that we need to promote? I'll go ahead and promote that I'm starting training for EMDR therapy tomorrow, which I'm super stoked about.
You and another one of our therapists.
Yes, so we will have two therapists here that are able to facilitate EMDR. And for those of you that may not know, EMDR is one of the most researched types of therapies for trauma treatment. And it's one of the most recognized as being effective for most types of trauma. Not all, but most types of trauma. And it's a tool I've been wanting to add to the toolbox for a long time.
One of my girlfriends had it done, and she described it to me in a way that I was like, "Oh, that really makes sense." But she was like, "With traumas, like sometimes you'll have those like repetitive thoughts that like they come into your intrusive, repetitive thoughts
Yeah.
that come into your head, and you can't stop them from coming and happening, and it's really impacting you." And she was having those happen, and she did the EMDR therapy. And she said that it's kind of like when you put a scratch CD in one of those buffers.
Yeah.
And like, at first it was like it's hitting that scratch every
Mm-hmm.
time, but after it goes through that buffer, like it doesn't anymore, right?
Yeah,
It, like,
it's
helps
smooth now, right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it helps you to quit hitting those skips. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool way to describe that.
Yeah,
So-
it's a method of processing trauma more effectively. And so, yeah, it takes like the skips out of it, those annoying like parts of that CD, and makes it one smooth track. And then that helps you where you don't have as many flashbacks or negative responses to the actual memory. So, looking forward to that. We'll have two therapists very soon that are certified to do EMDR. So, very cool. All right, let's get on to today's topic. We're finishing up for the month of teen mental wellness, and we are talking about teen depression and suicide. So, let's start off with the first part of this, teen depression. It can be difficult to recognize when anybody is in depression because depression does not always present as the sad, mopey, distant, unmotivated persona that most of us are like classically say is depression.
Right. People mask their depression. So you never know.
They get
Yes.
really good at it. Too.
Yes. That happens.
Also with teenagers, I mean, is it that uncommon for them to be distant and moping or to be like, you know, in their own world or unmotivated? A lot of times that's kind of the epitome of teenager life, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the teenager
Sure.
type, right?
Well, there's a lot of people, especially teens, who get the idea that for some reason suppression of emotion is not cool, but maybe more acceptable. Like, I'm not supposed to show emotion. You know, I'm supposed to be stoic. I'm not supposed to be, especially males, they get into that state of like, nothing makes me happy, nothing makes me sad. I'm just emotionless.
Well, also showing vulnerability in a high school setting could be
Detrimental.
Detrimental.
Yeah, absolutely.
to your own self.
Yeah,
So,
because I've mentioned it before, but typically the kids that are recognized as the most popular in school, especially males, are oftentimes the closest to the definition of narcissistic, and so vulnerability is not something that you learn as a high quality or acceptable in that type of setting. So if you're not naturally a person who can display confidence, then you might think, oh, if I just go emotionless, then it looks like nothing bothers me. And so they become repressive and emotionless. Now, that means they could be on the path to depression, but it doesn't mean that they're in depression at that point. But like you said, some people mask their depression. So what are ways that you see people, Kindred, the ways they mask their depression?
I mean, just being happy in public and then going home and laying there
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
and just, I mean, that's what you do. You just lay there and stare at like the ceiling or the ceiling fan.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be so they go like in public, it's using all their energy they have to be social, bubbly, acceptable, whatever it is they're trying to be, whatever it is they're trying to project. And then they go home and it's like, well, now I'm drained. And they just stare at things or dissociate.
Why did I use all of that energy today?
Yeah.
To do what? Make other people happy?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's what and that can be a sign of depression. We've seen it with like comedians who have like been super depressed or even committed suicide, with performers. If by judging their performances, you would never know they were in a depressive state. But what they do afterwards is they go into like this hole, but they don't let anybody else see it, or only the people closest to them are the ones that ever really see it.
Are we going to talk about Robin Williams?
Well, that'd be one of them. Yeah, absolutely. Now, he also had Parkinson's, and Parkinson's can mess with your mind too. It can make you more impulsive. So,
Didn't know that.
yeah, I believe I think he
I
had,
didn't know that
I think
either.
he got diagnosed. I'm not going to say that 100% because obviously you guys aren't like picking up on that, so I could be wrong. But I think he got diagnosed with. I think he was in the early stages of Parkinson's, and as I recall, not 100% on that. If I'm wrong, sorry, but I think he had something mentally going on that he was in the early stages of some formation of some disease, neurological disease. So, but I mean, there are people that do all sorts of things like to mask their depression. So, it's hard to recognize sometimes when people are in depression. So, one of the things that you can look for is changes in behavior or the way that people interact. So, if your kid normally used to hang out with the family and it used to seem like effortless, they'd come in, they'd talk, and now their interactions seem strained, they seem forced, or they seem more distant or pulled back from you, or maybe they're over engaging, but it looks like they're acting or faking, then something's off. And what you really want to know is what's going on behind their head. You know, are they asking to do things like maybe miss school more? Maybe are they trying to avoid things more? Are they doing behaviors? You're catching them doing things that they wouldn't normally do that seem to be a little bit more on the avoidance side or risk-taking side. Then there's some indications there that they could be displaying some depression. And here's what I think I want to get across when it comes to depression, and especially teen depression. one of the worst things you can say to somebody who is depressed is like, what is your problem? You don't have anything to be depressed about. Because depression is not always created by circumstance. We tend to think of depression as like, oh, this person is sad because this thing happened. But that's not all forms of depression. Sometimes we are depressed by circumstance, but a lot of times we're depressed from chemical imbalance. Something, we just don't have the right chemicals firing in our brain for whatever reason. It can come from head trauma. It can come from poor like development, like a pituitary gland doesn't produce growth hormone as well, and then our hypothalamus starts deregulating the types of chemicals that we need in our system to feel happy. So it's like, even with things going on, you just can't feel happy. So and some of it's with hormonal changes. The hormone changes that kids go through can cause these effects to occur. And so like they're chemically out of whack at that point. So it's not like they go ahead.
I was thinking your diet and lifestyle
Yep.
can affect that as well, like chemical imbalances in your body.
Yes, it certainly can. Absolutely.
Not to mention, like it's a social minefield a lot of times at that stage of life too. Like everything feels like so big and so all encompassing, and
Well, your emotions are so overwhelming as a teenager, and so it
Yeah.
just feels overwhelming.
It's overwhelming to begin with, and then it gets worse, right? And then you got all these changes going on that
Yeah.
you don't know how to make sense of. And then because part of you thinks that you're supposed to be separating from your family, which you kind of are, but you're not wanting to take the issues to them, and you also are kind of at a phase where you feel like you know more than them, and you're trying to rely more on your peer group, but your peer group doesn't know anything either.
Right, they're going through the same things.
Yeah. So you're going to talk to people who are going through the same problems who also don't know how to handle it. And you're getting a lot of really bad advice in those circumstances. So you're setting yourself up to just go deeper into a depressive state. So one of the ways that like we try to mitigate that is we just try to have some type of times where we just have regular interactions with our kids. So whether it's like, at the dinner table, stopping in to talk to them, just catching them, doing something with them. It's like just having enough regular interaction that I can see, are there any real changes going on that I should be aware of? If I notice it, let's talk about it. And then also trying to facilitate open communication.
Yeah, that was exactly what I've been thinking about as we're having this conversation, is like teenagers are so prone to like just going and disappearing into their room, and like if you let them, I mean, you might not see or talk to them for weeks. Practically, except that they might come and get some food every now and then out of the fridge and like grunt at you as they do,
Yeah, sure.
But like
It's relatable.
Yeah.
Right, it is. It is. River's like, gonna be 13 this year, and like if I didn't make him come out of his room sometimes, like I wouldn't see him because he's down there. He's like, or in his room doing his video games or whatever, and you almost have to. They're not always going to want to do it. They're going to be like, oh, I don't. Do I have to do game night tonight?
Yeah.
And like. But by making it like this is a value, this is a priority in our family because this is our time together, and it's not always going to be what they want to do, but that's like a valuable check-in time for you being able to see if something's going on. Because if they're in their room all the time, you can't assess anything from there.
Yep. So you kind of have to facilitate regular times where your family is together, so that you have those moments as like little check-ins to see how somebody is doing consistently. So you got those things to help, and then you also have the long enough time throughout your history with those kids to facilitate open communication, so that when they do become teenagers, they're already used to talking to you. So when they want to pull back, they're like, well, I'm been talking to my parents forever, so I guess it's okay. And they'll at least try to come out of their shell more, or you can coax them out to talk to you.
What about for parents who maybe don't have and haven't had established those like that communication, right? Like,
Sure.
Because there's
Under
so many-
what? Yeah, different circumstances. Sure.
right, different personality types, or maybe that was just like how they they grew up and so that was the norm, but they're realizing that it's problematic now as their kids getting to be a teenager. What are some things that they can do if it's maybe not been part of their established
Sure.
routines?
Best thing you can do is get a therapist at that point. You really need a third party at that point to redefine the communication in the relationship. Because what typically happens is if you have already got a relationship pattern developed, and especially a communication pattern within that relationship, then that's going to be really hard to break. If you're used to the type of pattern where you try to talk to the kid makes some remark that they know will make you mad or cause a reaction from you, and then you're not aware of your own reactions, but you still do it anyway, and then the walls are now up and we can't talk anymore. That's the pattern. Breaking that on your own is incredibly difficult because you already have the pattern set up. And unless you're a very self-aware person, it's hard to know when you're stuck in your own patterns. You know, you can go and like, I don't know why this isn't working. I can't figure this out. Why won't they talk to me? And, you know, and me as a therapist, not only am I trained, but I'm an emotionless third party. So I look at the situation and I can eyeball it in 5 minutes or less. Like, oh, okay, well, I see your problem. This person's using this against you. Your kid's using like a distraction technique against you. They're deflecting the situation by doing something that's making you mad, and you walk away when you're mad so they don't have to talk about it. But then now they don't trust you because you don't keep trying to talk to them. So that's what's going on here. So I can identify it. I can point it out. I can begin to mediate conversations between them, and then I can teach them how to re-establish a pattern that's different. But that third party almost has to be present because you have to make all the parties aware of what they're doing, and then you have to teach them how to practice something different, a different communication strategy.
Right.
So you have to reevaluate your communication strategy and then develop a new one. That's not an easy thing to do on your own. It can be done, but you have to be a very self-aware adult in order to make that happen. So if you don't have the availability to do therapy, the best thing you can do is, if you are a self-aware adult, is pay attention when you're in those communication patterns and look for the moment where you see it breaks down. Why do we always stop here? That's a barrier. Why are we stopping at that barrier? So you don't even have to fix it in that moment. You just need to find out, where are we stopping? Oh, okay. I see we stop when she makes a smart aleck comment, because when she does that, that makes me mad. And then we get into an argument, and then we both go slam doors and we don't talk anymore. So, okay, that's where that happens. Now I got to have a strategy for what to do different. So when you throw a smart aleck remark at me instead, what am I going to do now? Then how am I going to break this pattern? So you have to be able to recognize the pattern, and then you have to be able to come up with methodologies to break the pattern. Very hard to do on your own, but doable if you're self-aware enough, and you can look up enough things online to help you like learn how to break specific parts of patterns. The problem is you got to have the right resources to go to and make sure that it's actually good advice. It's complicated. TikTok is not always the best place to go to for your mental health advice, because to them, everything is an ADHD or trauma response. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
It's
True.
Yeah, I had to get away from it. It's really great, but at the same time, it's very overwhelming, and there's no guidelines. And I'm
There's
like,
almost
this
like
is
too
overwhelming.
much
Yeah,
information being like just bullet at you, and you can't. There's like no.
Yeah.
Well, there's no one to filter it out.
Yeah. To tell you, there's no one. Yeah, to tell you like this is fact and this is crap.
Yeah, sure.
And especially with teenagers, right? Like you can try to have this approach with your kid on your own, but like we were saying earlier, they're at that stage where like they don't really want to listen to you anyway. And
Yeah.
so like even if you're trying to take a different approach and tell them like, well, I've been looking up this research, they're going to be like, well, what do you know?
Right.
Having that impartial third party, however, like somebody outside of that dynamic, a lot of times will even that playing field where they can like take that information and actually register it in a different way than when it's coming from the parent.
Yep.
Yeah, and then, I'm just going to throw this in here, and I've said it before, this is a lot of what therapy is. I mean, it's a lot of, especially what we specialize in here at Affinity, is this type of therapy of helping people learn how to communicate and and break those cycles.
Yeah, it's pattern breaking.
Yeah.
Even in trauma therapy,
Exactly,
we're trying
right.
to break patterns.
Well, even in trauma therapy, you have to learn how to communicate, and so that's a lot of what therapy is.
Yes. So, moving into the part about suicide, you have to take teen suicide seriously because teens are inherently impulsive. And to them, the social networks and systems that they are in are their world. And they don't know anything outside of that world. They can recognize that there's a world outside of it, but they don't know.
They can't fathom it.
Right. They can't.
They don't understand it.
Well, it's kind of like if you've ever seen an interrogation done before on TV. We've all watched those shows like The Last 48 or things like First 48 or things like that. So and you're wondering like, why would somebody ever admit to doing something wrong like that? And as an interrogator, what you're trying to do in those moments is you're trying to keep them in a space long enough and interact them with enough that they start to feel like there's nothing else that exists outside of the room that you're in. They're not thinking about their family. They're not thinking about their freedom. They're not thinking about jail. They're just locked into that moment right there. And then that moment right there, all we're doing is having a conversation. And eventually you can get somebody to break by making them feel like this is all that exists. Even though they know that's not true, that's what they feel. So you can do that to a person at any point just by putting enough pressure on them and keeping them in the same circumstance long enough. So you take a kid that's underdeveloped mentally, that is in the same circumstances all day long, same repeating patterns, and to them, that's their world. So if in that world they're getting bullied, they're getting made fun of, they feel outcast, to them, they don't belong. They don't exist. They shouldn't be living. And they may even have people telling them, you should just go kill yourself. And to them, that's everything that exists. So they can take a kid who is not normally impulsive by doing things that would normally hurt them, but all of a sudden now feels like they have nothing left in life because all of their social networks and things are rejecting them. So if a kid is showing or presenting any type of erratic behavior, it must be taken seriously because even a kid that may not be depressed at that moment could act on something quick. So you have to be aware that you need to take that and act on it if a kid is showing some type of erratic behavior or even threatening suicidal stuff because they have a tendency just to over-respond. So, even if I knew one of my kids wouldn't do that or probably wouldn't do it, I'm still going to treat it like, okay, this is an emergency and we need to talk about it and we need to get you talked down. And we need to help you see that there is more to life outside of what you're really dealing with, but we need to help you with this problem. They need to feel like there is support and that there is something beyond the problem that they're dealing with at the moment. So it's incredibly important to take it seriously, but also understand that most people do not take it ever that far. You still take it seriously, but you don't have to run into every situation like, oh, they're going to commit suicide. You don't want to run into a situation like that anyway, even if somebody is going to. You want to go in, let's open communication, let's talk, let's get some of this stuff going. And if you're bad enough, you need to go inpatient. You need to go to an inpatient facility for a few days, and you need to get away from this current circumstance, and you need to get on medications, and we need to get you started on something that will be helpful to you. It doesn't always go there. In fact, it's rare that it goes there, but you also need to know that's an option. So if a kid does not seem to be getting better, if they're going to deeper depression, they're escalating their self-harm behaviors, or they're just being erratic and overly emotional and can't get it under control, those are the times where we start to look at, okay, you're going to need a short-term inpatient stay. Not a long-term, just a short-term. And long-term is more for people who have repeated that type of behavior over and over again. So it's always take it serious, but don't be super serious while you're taking it seriously because
like panicky is what you mean.
Right. If you get so panicky, they're just going to see you as somebody who is not stable, and they're not inherently going to trust you to help them with the circumstance. If you're just like they're in the background crying like, oh my God, my baby said they want to come out, this is not going to work. You're just going to be so overly emotional, they're going to want to get away from you because you're only escalating the problem. you have to go in and be direct, but be calm. And
Yeah.
and that's hard when your
It
kid
is
says
hard,
they
yeah.
want to hurt themselves.
It is. It's hard to not feel reactive in those moments as the parent because, and then also I think we talked about this maybe last week, but like, where you get like, well, why would you do that? Like, and getting almost
Accusatory.
about it. That's also not the route to go.
Right.
Like it's such a delicate approach with this particular situation. And so, there's not always like an instruction manual for this, and sometimes it's really good to have those outside sources to help you and guidance wise. So if you're feeling like your kiddo is needing some extra help in that way, then reach out to some professionals potentially for some guidance or resources.
Would y'all end this for us? We're at the end anyway. My teenager is calling, so I'm going to go ahead and call her back. Just go ahead and talk us out, would you?
Okay.
Will do.
Just do our normal outro.
All right. Well,
We have one comment.
okay.
Jennifer Wilson says it's very hard and very important to stay calm.
It is very hard. It is very hard when you feel out of control, when things feel out of control and you have to reel in your emotions. That's kind of what I've told myself and learned myself is, okay, yes, you can panic, but you can't panic right now. You have to
Right.
get through this first and then you can go in there and panic where they're not seeing you do it.
Right.
And you can be honest, be like, I'm probably going to go in there and cry when I'm done or, tell them how you're feeling. But like right now, we're going to deal with this and this is what we're doing. And if you can at least say that, then that helps them feel more safe.
I usually stay pretty calm in like high stress situations, but then as soon as it's over, I'm like,
I know, right? Yeah. Okay. Now I can feel this. Now I can feel it.
yeah.
I'm like, we got to get through this right now, and then at the end, I'm like, ugh.
Yes.
Well, that's a superpower in itself,
It
right?
is, yeah.
And that's such especially the younger folks. They need to feel like somebody's got a handle
Yeah.
on something. And if we're
Exactly.
falling apart in the middle of them falling apart, it's just a hot mess, and that's what they take from that. So, like us having the ability to keep that collective calm, even if you're being like, it's okay to show some vulnerability, right? And like
Yeah,
to be
yeah, for
like,
sure.
I literally
Calmly.
just get so panicked that I go into like survival mode, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm calm.
Yeah,
On the outside,
like you shut
inside-
off your feelings.
Yeah, I shut
Yeah.
off everything, and I'm
Yeah.
like, we're gonna get through this. This is what we're gonna do. Like,
Yeah.
just go into logic,
Yes.
and not
They're relatable.
yeah.
emotions.
Yes, exactly. All right. So, thank you for joining us today on Therapy Thursday. It was a kind of difficult topic to talk about, but it was one that we didn't want to leave out, especially talking about teen mental wellness. So next month, our topic is parenting. Yes, I've been doing parenting for almost half a month now, so I'm like, that's our topic now, but it's not. So
It's a nice extension.
it is.
Yeah.
So we're doing our topic is parenting next month, and we're going to talk about becoming parents, the stress, the how to deal with your mental health becoming a parent. There's lots of things that go into that. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. And if you are interested in services, you can call our office 870-324-5122 for Pigget, or 573-840-0440 for Kennett, or visit us at counselingwithaffinity.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.